This is so silly. Hi friends, I'm Emily and this is Ink Not Blood. So I really enjoy looking at all the new books that are coming out and picking out the ones that I'm most excited for, so I thought I would do that for you guys today. So I picked out 6 books that are being released in June of 2018 that I thought sounded really interesting and I thought you guys might be interested in too. I'll go through each book and talk about what genre it belongs to, a little bit about the synopsis, and then maybe something about why I'm interested in reading it. I haven't read any of these books yet, but I'm excited to get my hands on them. This video will definitely be spoiler free. There are 6 books and I want to end with the one I'm most excited for, so I'm going to start with the one I'm least excited for. Although because this is a short list, I'm still pretty excited for the first one too. I just want to end with the one that I'm like really excited to read. So the first book on my list is Soulstruck by Natasha Sennell, which is going to be released on June 12th of this year. This is a young adult contemporary, but it might have a little bit of magic in it. It's kind of unclear. Soulstruck is set in a Cape Cod beach town in the off-season, and it follows 17-year-old Rachel, whose mother was struck by lightning many years ago. According to Rachel, getting struck by lightning is what led her mother to find her soulmate. So at the beginning of the book, Rachel is dead set on getting struck by lightning herself so that she can also go out and find her soulmate. Rachel's dealing with a lot of family issues as well. It sounds like her dad is out of the picture, and her mom doesn't pay much attention to her. In the middle of all of this, Rachel starts falling in love with one of her best friends. The synopsis of this book included mention of Rachel's mom going to this support group for lightning strike survivors, which is honestly the main reason why I put this book on the list at all. These types of support groups are a real thing, and I became interested in them a while back when I first learned about them. Getting struck by lightning is extremely traumatic, and if the person even survives, there are a ton of long-term side effects. This can include depression, memory problems, insomnia, and even personality changes, along with a whole other mess of things. So these support groups exist so that people who have survived getting struck by lightning can connect with other people who have gone through the same thing. There are even stories about people who have been struck by lightning and then subsequently have their ailments healed or suddenly have new abilities. In Soulstruck, getting hit by lightning apparently leaves Rachel's mom with the ability to see soulmates. So this book isn't at the top of my list, but I'm still interested, especially because the protagonist seems to have this dark obsession with getting struck by lightning, which is kind of batshit crazy. This book only has about 21 ratings on Goodreads thus far, with an average star rating of 3.71. Book number 2 on this list is Wild Blue Wonder by Carly Sorosiak. This is another young adult contemporary that maybe has a little bit of magical realism. Unclear. The book takes place at a summer camp, and the description kind of gives you the idea that maybe this is kind of a magical place, but overall it's categorized as realistic fiction. So in Wild Blue Wonder, Quinn's family owns this summer camp that has an air of magic and maybe a sea monster living off its coast. From what I understand, the book alternates between 2 different narrations, one of before and one of after, with something terrible that has happened in the middle that leads Quinn to withdraw from her family and lose the person she was falling in love with. One narration takes place during the summer at the camp and the other takes place in winter. The writing in this book is supposed to be beautiful, and it deals with the idea of being resilient in the face of grief while also handling a lot of complicated family dynamics. Plus, the main character, Quinn, is apparently really into marine biology, which I just think is awesome. I think that'll be a really cool aspect of her character. On Goodreads, this book has 42 ratings thus far, with an average rating of 4.26. The third book on my list is Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessl. This is a young adult paranormal mystery, and it's supposed to be released on June 5th of this year. It's a year after graduation, and Beatrice and 5 of her best friends from her popular high school clique all meet up at Wincroft, a seaside estate where they used to all hang out. But their friend group is now incomplete. Jim, who also happened to be Beatrice's boyfriend, is now dead, and his death remains unsolved. This next part may be a little spoilery. It's hard to tell because I haven't read the book, but if you really don't want to know anything about the plot going into reading this book, maybe skip ahead about 10 seconds. So Beatrice and her old friends are having this reunion and catching up, and there is an accident, and there's some sort of paranormal snag in time. Beatrice and her friends are forced to live the same day over and over again. You know, a la Groundhog's Day. But they're given a chance for one of them to survive and escape the loop if they can all agree on who. Along the way, they find out things about each other and about the mysterious death of their friend. Reviewers have described this book as weird, surprising, and enchanting. And it sounds like the kind of weird I'd be into, so I'm totally planning on reading it. This book already has 192 reviews on Goodreads with an average star rating of 3.99. And we are on to book number 4, which is 1,000 Beginnings and Endings, edited by Ellen O. and Elsie Chapman. This is a young adult short story anthology that has a whole mix of genres in it. And this book will be coming at you June 26th of this year. This is an Own Voices anthology where the authors are reimagining folklore and mythology from East and South Asia. The short stories range in genre from fantasy to sci-fi to contemporary to romance and everything in between. I'm really excited about this book because I want to learn more about cultures that I'm not necessarily familiar with. And I think this book is just really important because it's getting the young adult audience to engage with different cultures and fall in love with their stories, like many people have already done with Greek, Roman, and Norse mythology. Plus, I am always here to support Own Voices books. This book has 59 ratings on Goodreads thus far, with an average star rating of 4.32. Book number 5 is called Bring Me Their Hearts by Sarah Wolfe, and it'll be released on June 5th of this year. This is a young adult fantasy book that I am super pumped for. It follows Zira, who is what is called a Heartless. Her heart is literally being kept in a jar by a witch called Nightsinger, and as a result, she is fated to be this immortal soldier doing the bidding of this witch. But she's also driven by this desire to feed on flesh and blood, so I guess being a Heartless is basically like being some kind of fairy tale zombie. Zira makes a bargain with Nightsinger as a way for her to earn her freedom. The idea is that she will go out and retrieve the literal heart of a prince and bring it back to Nightsinger in exchange for her own heart and thus her own humanity. Speaking of humanity, Zira is in constant conflict between what is left of her humanity and whatever monster is growing within her. One reviewer mentioned that this is not a story about a prince who saves a damsel from a monster. In fact, the damsel is the monster. Another reviewer called it a delightful bucket of sass, witches, and stabbing. So, like, what more could you ask for? Last I checked, this book had 101 ratings on Goodreads with an average star rating of 4.33. And now we are down to the final book on this list and the one I am most excited for, Summer of Salt by Katrina Lino. This is a young adult magical realism contemporary and it's due to be released on June 5th. Summer of Salt follows 17-year-old Georgina, whose family is known for these magic powers that get passed down generation to generation through the women in the family. But even though Georgina's twin sister has already started showing signs of these powers, Georgina has not, and she's afraid she's never going to get them. Georgina and her family live on an island called By the Sea, and it sounds like while no one will come out and straight up call them witches, people low-key know where to go if they need a little bit of magic help here and there. But then some sort of tragedy strikes, and everyone is looking to blame it on Georgina's family and the magic that touches them. If the synopsis alone weren't enough to make me want to read this book, I've also heard that it draws inspiration from some Edgar Allan Poe poems. Plus, it includes a same-sex romance and strong female friendships. So sign me up! This is the June release that I am most excited to get my hands on. I am such a sucker for witchy stories, and this sounds right up my alley. It has 56 ratings thus far on Goodreads with an average star rating of 4.36. So that's all 6 of the books that I wanted to tell you about. These are all coming out in June. I have information for them listed in the description box, so you can check that out if you want to learn more about these books or pre-order them or whatever. There are a ton of books released every month, so these are only a handful of the books that are being released in June. If there's a book coming out in June that I missed that you're excited for, definitely let me know down in the comments. Or if you're really excited to read one of the books that I mentioned, let me know that too. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing to my channel. I will see you next time. But first, you know what time it is. It is time for an awkward goodbye. Goodbye. Checking out the synopsis. What are you doing? What are you doing in there? That dragon.